What was your paranormal experience? 1. I'm a pilot. One time I was flying and I saw this bright orange glowing thing hovering over the trees. It was kind of bouncing around like if you had a ball on an elastic string and you just bounced it around and whatnot. Anyways, since my course would have brought me near it, I asked air traffic control if they saw anything on their radar, which they said no. They asked me what I saw, so I described it and they said they weren't showing anything and were not aware of any military activity. The thing shot straight up and disappeared, so I told them it was gone. They asked me if I wanted to file a UFO report, which I said heck no, it's probably a weather balloon. Then I continued on my way. I know it wasn't a balloon, but I don't want the FAA questioning my sanity. What freaks me out is that we know very little about the ocean, but relative to us, the ocean is finite. What is behind the blue sky we see is infinite, and we know nothing about it. 2. I have posted this before, but why not again? About a year ago I was at my dad's house taking care of the dog for the week because he was gone camping with some friends, and my sister, my wife, was also gone to Colombia with her family for a month. My in-laws asked me to take care of their dog while they were gone, and I of course said yes. So there I am, first night at my dad's house with two dogs who had been playing together all day. I decide to go to bed around 10 o'clock, so I go lock the front and back door. I make sure every door in the house except for my bedroom door is closed and I sleep. At about 12 o'clock I hear the dogs freaking out, barking and whining, so I jump out of bed and go check on them. On my way downstairs I see the back door unlocked and open. I look down at the dogs and they are both staring at the basement door, whining and growling while laying in a puddle of their own pee. I see that the basement door is open, so I have 911 ready to be called on my phone and I go downstairs. I search around for a while, not even sure why I'm looking for, until I decide to go back upstairs and clean off the dogs. At maybe 1 o'clock the dogs are finally clean and no longer focused on the basement, so I make sure the basement door is latched and I go back upstairs after making sure the back door is locked as well. At about 2 o'clock I once again hear the dogs barking and freaking out, so I run downstairs. Once again I see the back door wide open, so is the basement door, but this time both dogs are staring out the window looking into the backyard. So this time I do not bother to go downstairs. I just close the door. I run to the back door and I close it and lock it as hard and as fast as I can. I go upstairs and I did not sleep for the rest of the night, but both dogs slept on the bed with me. After about a week my dad gets home and I ask him if we can watch his home cameras for that first night I was there. I had to wait for him to get home because I had no clue how to work it, and as we're watching I'm just looking to see if anything or anyone even went near the house during the night. Oddly enough there was nothing. The only weird thing is that around 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock the back door randomly flings open with nothing going in or out, but the scary part is that from a different camera in the house we can clearly see me lock the back doors every single time. No issue with the lock any other day before or since then. 3. A couple of years ago I had a dream reliving one of my childhood experiences where I was playing with my cousin, and at the end of the dream when he was getting ready to go home, I said goodbye to him, and for some reason it felt different that time. A couple of days later he ended up passing away due to sudden death syndrome. Basically a heart attack, but he was 25, so it was very unusual. 3 years later to this day, every 2-3 weeks, I'm having very vivid dreams where I'm talking with him and having full conversations. My friend says it's my cousin reaching out to me, and while I don't believe that, I can't otherwise explain it rationally. Something I forgot to mention is he was born the same month and year as me, just 8 days apart, and so we'd been close friends since we were young kids. 4. My father died less than 6 months after my daughter was born. She was not a good sleeper for her first year or so, waking up screaming and crying at all hours of the night. My wife and I would trade times getting up to soothe her. One evening not too long after my father passed I was having a dream that my daughter was screaming in her bedroom. In the dream I got up and went to her room, but before I got there my dad came out of the room and just said, "She'll be okay," and kept walking away and the crying stopped. I shot up and saw the baby monitor screen was on. It was on sound activated mode, so the screen only comes on when a sound it's over 60 dB and goes off after 3 minutes of quiet. I get up and check and she's fine and sleeping. A little shaken, it took me a bit to get back to sleep. I tell my wife about the dream in the morning. She told me she heard her crying, but thought I'd gotten up to calm her. Still a vivid memory in my mind nearly 3 years later, seeing my younger looking dad coming out of her room. 4. I posted this before. I was at my daughter's house. She and her husband were given his deceased uncle's house 1 year, and she, my granddaughters and I had gone to the store. My son-in-law, James, who is 5'9" and stocky, and a friend of theirs who lives with them, Gary, 6', and thin build, both worked at the same shop delivering packages, but sometimes one would get off before the other. The house is older. When you walk into the foyer her room is off to the right. Straight ahead you walk into the kitchen and off to the right is the living room with the bathroom off that. She kept blackout drapes in the living room so it was dark. So we get back from the store, daughter goes out back, kids run upstairs, and I am in the kitchen by the counter unloading bags. I am facing the back door. I see a tall shadow move from the bathroom and it goes straight to the TV entertainment system. I think to myself that Gary is home because Gary would always come home and go straight to the TV enter system where he had a little bowl he would put his keys and change in. Didn't even think twice about it. I get done and go to use the bathroom, and as I finish and leave, it crosses my mind that I didn't see Gary in the living room. My daughter had come in from the back and I asked her where Gary was. She said that he was still at work. I told her no, I just saw him in the living room. She and I just passed it off. I got to mulling over it, and when James came home first, I asked James if his uncle was more like his build or taller and thinner. James tells me his uncle was tall and thin. We got to talking and James told me that his uncle made his bedroom where theirs was now, instead of an upstairs bedroom, as he got sicker and couldn't use the stairs. So if he went to the bathroom, he would just walk right through the doorway where my daughter and James had their TV entertainment system. Gary got home a few hours later. I didn't get the heebie-jeebies, etc. Got at no time thought I was seeing anything other than a flesh and blood person. 5. Oh my goodness, do I have something for this? I'm going to cheat a bit. This was not my experience, but my dad's, and what he has experienced in his life regarding this is far more interesting than mine. So strap yourselves in, cause it's going to be a long one, and let me tell you about his old farmhouse, aka the spooky house. Now for context, my dad grew up on dairy farms with his parents, who worked for a guy who owned multiple farms. So they would hop around to different farms and manage them, so to speak. Also, we live in Australia. Anyway, while my dad was in his late teens to early 20s, they lived in this house that eventually became known as the spooky house to him and his parents, and this what they experienced while living there. The house was known to have a very foreboding feeling to it. Like something was always off and you couldn't put your finger on it. Floor was made out of old wood that had little notches in it, and Nan, Dad's mom, put little stoppers in them to fill the holes. A lot of the time they would wake up in the morning and find that all of the stoppers were pushed up from underneath the house. Dad said they had these giant-ass hippie beads hanging in the doorways. So big and heavy that it would have to be a big gust of wind to move them. He lost count how many times he would get up early for work or such and find them swaying. Like someone walked through them, but when he checked the bedrooms, everyone was asleep. I remember Dad telling me that it slowly got worse over time. Like the house didn't want them there or something. At one point Nan contacted a psychic to see if they could make it better or calm it down. Well, the psychic wouldn't even get out of her car and come up the driveway. Absolutely refused to come inside the house. Nan was left flabbergasted and asked what she could do. The psychic told her to move house and drove off. Dad said not long after that these things would start stalking the house. To this day he has no idea what they were, and he doesn't really want to know. Nan would come out in the morning, find that the grass was pressed down or trampled around the house, especially where the windows are. Her peg basket on the clothesline would be ripped to shreds and bits of it spread around. Dad said she would get the shits cause she had to keep buying new ones, haha. It started to get more serious when Dad would be woken up by scratching at his window, on the outside. He was always too scared to look back at it, cause he knew whatever it was staring right back at him while scratching the window. They would check at morning to find that the paint had been scratched off the house at around human height and grass flattened. At one point while his dad was out working a few paddocks over, Nan came in and woke Dad up, and together they huddled in his bedroom, waiting for daylight as the thing stalked around the outside of the house. Speaking of, it stalked Dad once too. He was walking from the house to his dad, a few paddocks over to help with the cows. About 4 a.m.-ish. It was a cold and there was frost on the grass. As Dad was walking he could hear a crunch coming behind him. So he stopped and it stopped too. Dad was like, huh? And started walking again, and so did it. Again Dad stopped and it stopped. Now starting to get freaked out, Dad's starting to pick up the pace and he stopped again. Only this time it didn't stop, but started to come right at Dad. Dad fucking bolted, ran over 2 paddocks and cleared the fences. Didn't stop till he reached his dad's side. Whenever Dad's parents left for a couple of days and he had the place to himself, Dad would host massive parties with his friends. They had the run of the house and could sleep wherever they wanted. But all of them always end up huddling up in one room when they went to sleep. One time it was just Dad and his cousin over, they played a game of pool and drank. At one point around midnight, the both of them were sitting around and heavily drink. A dark figure appeared and said, "Go to bed." Dad said he was pissed drunk and thought, why the hell not? And they went to bed. The next morning they woke up to find the game of pool that was left unfinished put away, and his cousin asked who that person was that was standing over their beds watching them sleeping. But Dad didn't remember that part. Anyway, there's more to that house that I can tell, but this is getting to be a very long post, haha. Sorry about that. I will say though that Dad and his parents moved out and someone else eventually moved in. Not long after that, the house burned down. Dad didn't know what caused the fire, but he was sure as fuck happy about it. 6. My husband and I stayed at a super old hotel in Santa Fe, New Mexico. At the time I did not really believe in paranormal things or ghosts, mainly because nothing had ever happened to me. The old room we were staying in had this decorative wooden chair that had a slanted seat. I took note of the slant, because I wound up putting my computer bag on this chair and felt comfortable doing so. I'm super careful with my electronics, and the slanted seat made it so my bag slid all the way back into the back of the chair so it couldn't fall. I also hung a nice new dress on the back of the chair. We went out for sightseeing, and when we came back, my dress was on the floor near the chair. I wondered if housekeeping had touched it, even though we had do not disturb on our door all day and the room had not been serviced. Oh well, we ordered in some dinner and went to bed. My husband and I were laying in bed in the dark talking, almost falling asleep, when suddenly we hear a super loud slam. It was so loud we shot awake and turned on the light. There on the other side of the room, a good 10 or 15 feet from the chair, was my computer bag. It was like someone had lifted it and threw it down. There's no way it just fell off the chair that far away. And the chair seat was slanted backwards toward the wall. It would be hard for anything to just fall off it, especially forward and 15 feet away. And it was a slam to the ground. I was so terrified. But my husband just shrugged like, guess this place is haunted like a lot of places in Santa Fe. Guess the ghost doesn't like stuff on its chair. I demanded we sleep with a light on. I didn't even have the courage to check if my computer was okay until the next day. The next morning my husband asked the front desk if the hotel was known to be haunted, and the guy just laughed and said, "Oh what, did you see the little girl?" Edit this blew up, but it's 100% a true story and literally is the only paranormal thing that's ever happened to me. My computer was just fine, thank goodness. It had a nice case on it, but I was freaking out when I did finally go to open it. The hotel was the Hotel St. Francis, and I found a picture online of one of the chairs on a random Yelp review. I guess a few of their standard rooms all have this chair, so this probably isn't the chair. And also I remember my chair having a solid back with no hole connected to the seat, so mine may have been slightly different. Still gives me the creeps when I look at it.
Thanks for watching. If you got this far, leave a comment, like if you liked it, and follow for more.